discipline is a concept that seems to get thrown around very frequently on every social media platform and gets driven into our heads by many successful people from across the world. But I think it's really easy to miss the point of discipline. And that's what we're going to be exploring today. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Parker Eimerl, and this is the Conversation Station. So I'm not going to lie, I'm one of those guys that believes that discipline is very important. And I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form, right? I feel like half my Instagram feed is these guys that preach about discipline. You know, you've got your Goggins, you've got your Jocko. But I saw this reel today from Ali Abdal, I believe that's how you say his name, and he was talking about how discipline is right for some people, but for most it is just a gruesome way to live life, not an enjoyable way to live life. And it was this thing that he said after that really struck me. And what he said is, you have to make those things that require discipline enjoyable, so that you are disciplined by default. Now, when he said in the beginning that he thinks that discipline isn't for everyone, I think that is wrong. So I think when it comes to discipline, it is so important that we do make these things enjoyable. We need to live a life where we enjoy doing the hard things, right? And it's a very interesting thing to explore. So when we are living life in a way where we are enjoying everything and enjoying the hard thing, well, that is the best life you can live. But discipline is not for then, right? Yes, you are practicing discipline, but that's not the hard discipline. That is the easy stuff, right? That is the soft serve of discipline. I want to talk about the ice cubes of discipline, right? That you have to, that are sharp and cold and not all that fun. That type of discipline is good for the times when you aren't inspired, when you take that approach to understand yourself and then you make those things fun. Sometimes that is going to fail. There are going to be times when you aren't inspired to get out of bed in the morning. There are going to be times when you don't want to do the thing that is right. But that is what discipline is for. And you need to practice constant discipline so that when you don't have the inspiration, you still do the thing. You need to practice discipline 100% of the time so that you can practice it the times when you don't want to. That's what's important. Discipline is less about, I know we have the Goggins people, but look at David Goggins, right? David Goggins enjoys the discipline, right? He's found a way to he hates what he's doing, but he enjoys the discipline. And that is him. And so I think that is what we need to look at. There is a difference between brutal discipline and enjoyable discipline. Not in the way that what you're doing is enjoyable, but you are enjoying life enough that the discipline isn't as hard. But with that in mind, we have to understand that there are going to be times where it's not like that. But the fact is that if we don't practice discipline in those moments, we won't get back to that enjoyable discipline. And so I think this does come back to understanding who you are and how you want to approach things. And it's so interesting. I think it's one of those things that I've been exploring recently. How do I find my inspiration 100% of the time? Or how do I keep it there 95% of the time? Because inspiration is short-term. Discipline is long-term. But the question is, how long can you extend inspiration? Because at the end of the day, inspiration makes discipline easier. And discipline isn't supposed to be easy. But if you can make your life more enjoyable, then that is a net positive. And so what I have been exploring is just trying different things. Now, at some level, I know it works, but sometimes, right, the discipline, like I said, sometimes the discipline fails. And what Jocko says is when he fails, he relishes it because it showed him his limits. And that's an interesting thing. And it's something I've been focusing on as well. Okay, I failed there. Good. I need to fail to get better. You know, we have to fail in our lives. If we aren't failing, we aren't learning. And if we aren't learning, we aren't anything. We aren't important if we aren't failing, in that there's no way to become an important person if you don't at first fail. And so it's been interesting because this last week I haven't been as inspired. And the interesting thing is I think it has to do with some new circumstances and a couple of different ways I've been approaching things. But I'm resetting this week back to the baseline that I know works so that I can reverse back, so that I can try again, and then I'm going to mess with those new scenarios again next week because I can't, you can't, it's just interesting. And I think it also has to do with the fact I switch houses from parent to parent. And so that is one of the interesting things, right? Jocko's, there's an Akira the Dawn song where he remixes some Jocko audio called Good. Find the positive in the bad thing. And the fact is, having to switch houses every week isn't necessarily a good thing. It's not something that's always going to be enjoyable, right? But the positive I've found, and the positive I like to focus on, it is harder to It is harder to maintain consistency, but it is so much harder to get stuck in a rut. It is so much harder to get stuck without inspiration because your environment changes. And that's an interesting thing because sometimes I think what we do have to do is we have to change our environment when we aren't. And when things aren't going well, sometimes the change that has to happen is an environmental shift, but not on a large scale. Sometimes it just has to shift so that we get the perspective that we need to fix our main environment. And I just think it's interesting because the places we are and these environments can affect us. And it certainly affected me last week. But I think one of the big things when it comes to setting up your week for success is your weekend, right? So I let myself stay up later on weekends, but what I'm trying to learn to audit is not let myself stay up late doing bullshit, right? Because if I stay up late doing bullshit, then my week's going to be bullshit. Right? That's just how things work. The precedent you set early on, it carries. And so if I laze around all day, I'm not going to I'm not going to have a good day. But yesterday, right, Friday night, I was literally up till 3 a.m. But I was just working, right? I just decided, I found a project. So here's my weekend structure that I want to share here. What I try to do, and this is actually an experiment this weekend. I will update you guys next weekend, which I believe we'll actually be done with the challenge on this day next week. But I will update you on how it goes. I'm working on a fun final episode that I'm excited to share. But what I've been experimenting with is finding a project that you'll enjoy, that you're going to be passionate about, that isn't high on the priority list, right? That isn't number one, but it is something you want to do, right? It's not something you need to get done. What is that passion project, right? You can be doing things you love, but there's going to be that one project that you haven't had time to do that you want to do. And oftentimes it's a project that's not for anyone else. It's a project for yourself. And so I was doing some logo design and some web design for my own endeavors last night. And it kept me up late, right? But that's the fun part, is that I gave myself the freedom to stay up later than usual, but I made myself do it on a net positive that I was passionate about. And I believe that's what's important here, right? We need to have these net positives on these weekends, but they need to be something just as fun as staying up and playing video games all night. It needs to be something that gets you inspired, that gets you amped to go for your week. So what is that project? What is that project that you want to do? What is that thing that you are putting off doing because you were too busy, too tired, too X, Y, or Z? Because I think one of the biggest things we can do is find our work passion project, right? And find that project we're excited about, because at the end of the day, being around people can fuel you, these external things. But in order to maintain that fuel, you need to find some fuel in some sort of work, so that even when you're doing similar work throughout your week that isn't on that exact project, the inspiration does in many ways carry over from one project to the other. And it's going to improve the quality of your work, right? And so I think it's interesting, because I certainly have weekends where I don't do crap. And then my weeks just suck. They are just terrible because I didn't set the precedent early on. And we all do this, those days when you laze around. Because I think no matter how perfect we want to seem on social media, we all have those days, right? But like, I think the weekends are the hardest time to be disciplined on those days, because our mind says, oh, it's the weekend. But if we can shift that and find inspiration, right? If we can find inspiration when we know we want to be lazy, find that project that we just want to do, right? Just find a net positive that you want to do. And then all the other disciplined things will fall into place much easier if you can let yourself have a rest day that isn't a rest day, right? A break that isn't a break. Because I don't like the idea of rest days, because they can be net negative. But if you can find a way to do a rest day while you are just attacking a project that you want to do, right? Attack that project. It could be painting, for all I care. It could be any of these things that you want to do that are going to be a net positive. I don't consider playing video games all day a net positive, because we all know that every young person listening knows that groggy feeling you get, that fog, that mental fog that you get from playing video games all day. And let's be honest, it carries into the next day, the next week. We are lying to ourselves if we think it doesn't. That's like, I'm speaking from experience here. We all have those times when the discipline fails us, when we fail ourselves, and it sets us up for failure. But if we can leverage that desire to be lazy and just shift it from being lazy doing video games that I'll enjoy to being lazy tackling a project that has an actual end goal and that will actually help me, well, then that builds momentum. As opposed to letting your weekend be a time when you lose it, let it be the time when you gain your momentum, right? I mean, and I think it's important to remember that we're not going to be perfect. We are going to fail at these things. There are going to be times when we are going to struggle. But if we can find that anchor, right? If we can find that anchor that we are excited about, and it doesn't have to be the same thing, right? I was basically yesterday playing around with a bunch of different things I thought I was going to have fun doing, and I didn't have fun with any of them until that last one, and my interface just died. So I'm gonna wrap this up. But I didn't have fun with half the ones basically all the things I thought I was gonna have fun with. And then I just started playing around with the logo design and that stuff, and it got me amped, and so I just kept working on it. I just didn't stop because I was enjoying it. And I think that's what's important. We need to find what we enjoy on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Set aside some time to just sit there and have fun. Have fun within yourself, right? Have fun in the solo, because a lot of work we do can be very solo, so we need to find out how to have fun in that solo. And that's about it. That's about all I got for you guys today. I'm excited for the episodes that I'm working on this week. I'm excited to get those out to you. Hopefully we'll deal with less interface issues, but Keep working hard. Keep pushing. Keep finding excitement in your discipline and get after it. Thank you guys at home for watching. I'm Parker Eimerl. I've been talking to you, and this has been The Conversation Station.